Hey everyone, welcome back to the second video of this series where in the first video we have learned how to write unit tests, what is unit test, why we write unit tests and how to use them to test the synchronous code in our iOS applications. So in that video I forgot to talk about the code coverage which I will cover in this video at the start only. So if you have not sure how to write unit tests, so make sure you check that video which is very easily explain you how to write the unit test. So let's get started and see first how we can create or how we can see check the code coverage of our unit test. So how much basically code coverage means we will see that how the unit test which we have written how much it covers the actual code of our application, so that we can see which code is left and we can write test cases for that. So this will be the code coverage at the start of this video, but after that we will see how we can test the asynchronous code in our applications, like we do API calls where we have to wait to get the response and then we have to check whether it is success or not. So we are going to do API calling in today's video from the scratch. I will create the new project and in which we'll see how to check the response, if it is coming or not, if the response is 200 or not, and if the response is like 404 which is not means we are getting the response but it is not valid, it is not success, it is failed. So we are going to see all this in today's video, so make sure you stay tuned till the last of this video. So let's get started and create a new project like always. But before creating a new project, this is the project which we have created in the last video. So if you have not seen that video, make sure you check that, where we have just created a user, we have created some how to check the validation of the email ID and phone number and how to test this logic in the unit test we have seen. So we have written this test cases and we have first failed those test cases using the test driven development, that is TDD, and then we have passed them. So the third part of TDD is refactor, which we can do, but for this small project we can't do much refactoring, but in the major big projects you can do that. And after that we have written all these things, but now we have to see the how much code coverage this test is doing, this test class. So for code coverage, what you have to do is first you have to come here on your scheme, click on edit scheme, then here click on options, and under this you can see here this option code coverage. Just tick this here. Here you can select your own target, or by default it is selected as all targets, so make sure it is like that only and click close. And now if I come here like this one, you can see this is called as report navigator. It is showing me all the test cases here. Now let me, it is by default giving me some error, but now if I run here my test cases, you can see the new option is came here, which is coverage. Now let me just close this. This is basically error because of the simulator. Basically my Xcode version and the simulator is different, that's why it is giving me error. So if I close the simulator and again run the test, it will run properly second time. Okay, you can see it is testing. Okay, it's launching now, and then we will get the result of test cases. Test is succeeded, you can see. Just ignore these red warnings for now, and you can see here the coverage option is given, and you can see here 3 times, 1 time. This was not earlier there, but now it is showing me how many times the code is running. So and it is in green, means it has succeeded. Now if I come here or click on coverage, and you can see here if I open this disclosure, it is telling me that which functionality is tested. So like here inside view controller, everything we have tested, that's why it is giving us 100%. But suppose we have written here something which we haven't tested, like let me just write this function here inside here, and I will call it as check the valid number. Let the logic be like this only. And now let's come again here and run the test cases, but I need to close this because this version is different. And now if I run, basically test will succeed because we haven't written any new test cases here, but it should basically give some change in this navigator where the coverage is different. So currently it is building. Let's check after building this. Okay, build is succeeded, and now here you can see it is giving me one red, that is I have not covered this under the test So that's why it is saying that it is not covered, it is 0 times, then this is covered, everything is covered except this. So this is how you can see how the code coverage works and how you can check how much code you have covered through your test cases. So now it will not be 100%. You can see I have not written test cases for this valid number, that's why it is saying 0%. So that's all guys for the code coverage part. Now let's close this, or what you can do is you can create a new function in this project also. So let's do in this only, because we are going to share, I'm going to share this code on GitHub with you, so it will be good that I will share everything in the one project only. So what we are going to do in this video is we have to test the asynchronous code. So for that what we will do is we will create a new function. So if you don't know how we create function, why we write test here, what is this exit test case, what is this @testable import, and what is this exit test, so make sure you check the previous video, there I have explained everything. Okay, so let's get started and create a new function. So as we know, if we have to create any function in test class, we have to start it with test. Then I will say here, let's check for the first, we are going to check if the response we are getting or not. So I will say no small, no response. Okay, so to test here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write one URL inside this. So for that I will say let URL equals to URL from string, and now I want to check that the response is nil or not. So for that I will just give whatever URL I want now, so it should not give me any result. So we are going to check this condition first, that whether it is replying us or giving us something or not. Okay, so now I have created URL, I will force under this, and then after this I will create the URL session. So if you don't know how to do the API calling using URL session, then let me know in the comment section below. I will create video on that also, which is very easily, I will explain you how to use this URL session to do API calling, to do get and post calls. And also if you want to learn how to upload and download data from the URL like that. Okay, so here I will use data task with URL. I will pass this URL here, and it will give me one closure, which is basically having three things: data, response, and error. And also make sure you call here resume, because by default it is in the pause state. So if you don't call resume, the functionality will not run inside this closure, so you will not get any response from the API. Okay, so now inside this I need to check if I am getting any data or not. So let's print that here, data. Let's add a breakpoint here, and now let's run this test. Okay, so somehow you can see it is saying okay, it's okay for now. Now I need to test this functionality, but it is not giving me any number here. Let me just compile this project once. Okay, now it is showing me the diamond sign. Now let me again close this and click on this icon to test this function. Okay, build is succeeded and it is running now. Okay, it has come inside this, and let me print this, and you can see it is printing nil. So it is basically not giving me any response. So if you want to check whether response is nil or not, so you can do something like this: xct assert nil, and here I will give data. Now let's run it again, and if it is giving me nil, as we have checked, this test should succeed. So let's check one more time. I am saying here xct assert nil means it should be nil. Now if we have written, so suppose the URL, okay, so it has succeeded means we are getting nil. So if you have some URL and you want to check whether it is returning nil or not, so that time what you can do is you can write something like this. So okay, now the second thing what we want to do is, here we have got the nil, that's okay, but now I want to test for the actual URL. Like for example, I can have some URL where I'm getting some data. So I'm going to create something like that. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here, and you can see this is the website called JSON placeholder. Basically what I've done is I've searched on Google JSON placeholder. This is the link. I'm going to click here, and here you can get the default some JSON for your project. So like here I'm clicking on user, and inside this I've got this response. So I will just copy this URL and I'm writing that here. So this function I've written for no response, so let it be like this. Now I will write one more function, and this will basically check whether we are getting the proper response or not. So let's call it as test. In this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check whether it is success or not. So I will say success response. Okay, then the first thing what we have to do is we have to write a URL. So URL will be like this, from string, paste the URL which I have copied from here. Now there is one more tip I want to give, that here you can see I've got this response. I will copy this, and it is not properly, you come to know that how it is, what array is there, and how which object is inside which object. So what you can do is you can open something called a JSON viewer, and here if you click on this and now just paste the copied, and now click on this viewer, it will show you the complete JSON in the right format. So in our video what we are going to do is we are going to get this response, and inside this we have this ID and name. So we are going to parse that much only. So if you want me to create videos on JSON parsing, so let me know, I will create videos on that also. So for this demo I'm going to just be working on this part where I'm getting just ID and name. So let's create that. So first I will come here, I will create one struct. Let's call it as user. It will be confirming to codable, and then inside this I will say let ID will be type of int, and let name will be of type string. Let's see, yes, ID is this and name is string. Now okay, it is giving me error because I have already created a user in the previous video. So let me call this as employee, not employee, user. Let me just remove this part, or it will give me error if I remove that. I will call it as person. Let's call it as person. Okay, it is having ID and name. So now what I am to do is I want to go here under testing, and here I will use the API calling, and I will get that data back. So for that what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this first. Just 1 minute. Okay, so I want to write the URL session here. So I will say URL session dot share dot data task with URL, which is our this URL, and here I will say it will be giving me three things: data, response, and error. And now after getting the data, response, and error, I will say here in, and here let me call the resume, so that our API will run. Let me just click on build if it is everything is correct. Okay, it is saying okay, we have to force unwrap this. Okay, let me click on build again. Okay, build has succeeded, we can go ahead. So what we have to do here is we want to get the data from the API, and we have to check whether it is success or not. So let's just do like here what we have done. Let me just print the data first and see if we are getting the data, and here I will like write this, and now okay, let me just remove this. Okay, so now I will run my test case. First we are just going to check whether it is giving us some data or not, instead of writing the complete code in one go. we'll go step by step. Okay, now you can see it is succeeded and test is also succeeded, so we have got some data. Now the next part what we want to do is we want to check. So suppose if we are doing an API call, your response will not come in one go, right? You have to wait for some time. Here we have just got the data and we have printed it, but we have to write some different code, like if it is not nil, if we have got data or not. If we have got the data, we will say okay, we have got the data, it's success. Otherwise we have to say that this test should fail. Like by default all the test cases are basically passed, so like I have written nothing inside this, and if I run this again, let me just close this, I have written nothing, still it will pass. You can see later in some time that it will pass because we haven't written anywhere that exit test fail. If we write exit test fail, then it will fail basically. So like this, you have seen that previously it has run and it is passed. Now this time I will say run again, and this time it will fail because we have written here the fail statement. Okay, it's testing. Okay, somehow it has test is not failed. Now why it has not failed is because it has not gone inside this. Why? Because you can see that until it comes, this test case is completed and it has given us the test has succeeded. So we have to tell that there is some way where it should come here after some delay, so we have to give some time to that. So for that there is one different scenario in this, like we have to assign some expectation, like I want to get this type of response, and when I get that response I will say that my expectation is fulfilled. So you have to create one expectation, then you have to tell that my expectation is fulfilled. If it is not fulfilled, then it will give the failure in the fail assert. So let's get started and see how we can do that. So there are basically three steps. So the first step is you have to create this what you say expectation. So for that I will say let expectation, you can call it anything, so let me call it as my expectation. From this URL is self dot expectation, you can see here, and inside this you can give any description. I will basically say I will say this as server should get 200 response. Means I am expecting that it should give me some response, it should succeed. So now we have to use this expectation. So for that what you can do is you can basically come here inside this and you can say that okay, once it has come inside this, it means it is succeeded. So I will say my expectation dot fulfill, means okay, means once the it comes here, compiler, it will understand that okay, whatever the user has requested that it has got and it is succeeded. So let's run and see how it works. But we have written only one statement, there are basically three steps, but we will see one by one. Okay, now you can see it has failed, basically it is not passed. Why? Our URL is correct, it is going here also, it should pass basically, but it is failed because here you can see I have created my expectation, which is the first step, but the second step is unweighted expectation, means it is not waiting, it is directly executing this, or it is not, it is basically finding the weighted statement. So the first step is to create an expectation, and the second step is to give the weight expectation. So for that what you can do is once this whole code is run, at the last you can say wait for expectation, and here you can give whatever time you want. So I will give as 4 seconds because in 4 seconds I can guarantee that this code will run. So you can give 4, and here I don't want to do anything inside handler, so I will remove that. So let's run it again. Okay, let's see if it is working this time or not. It is testing. This should fail basically because we have not written the complete 3 steps. Okay, so this has again failed here, and you can see it is saying me that failed. So what here we have to do is we have just given the fail statement, that's why it is failed. So basically it is not failing, it should fulfill. So let me run that again. Okay, now this time you can say it has come to this URL, it is success. Then after that it has got this response as expectation fulfill. It means we are getting the data inside this. So one more tip I want to give here is this statement should be run at the end of the all the code we have written, because it should give the wait one part. But we have a good practice that we want three things, that is expectation, fulfillment of expectation, and wait for expectation. So what I will do is I want to write this code after this, because it's a good practice that we should see all the 3 steps together, that is this step 1, step 2, and this is step 3. So we should not forget, so we will try to write this all 3 together. But how can we make sure that this code will run at the end of all the functions, because this should run after this URL is hit. So for that we have this functionality which is called as defer, and inside the curly braces we can write this code. So defer makes sure that whatever you have written inside these braces, the whatever is there inside defer, this part. Okay, let me just uncomment this. Okay, whatever you have written inside the defer, it will run at the end of the function, this function. So that's why I have written at the top, but I can, if I write inside defer, it will make sure that this will run at the end. So by this it will be very easy for me to see that okay, expectation I have written, okay, wait for expectation also I have written, and fulfillment also I have written. Okay, also one more thing is fulfillment statement should also come at the end, after getting the data and whatever you want to do, pass, decode it. After that you want to do the expectation fulfill. But again I want to write this code at the start so that I will not forget. So again I will do same here. I will say defer and curly braces. So this way it will also come inside this, but it will run this at the very end. Okay, now what we want to do is I want to check the response for the 200. So for that I will say first we want to check whether it is giving me an error or not, because if there is an error I will say directly there is a problem. So I will say not here, I will say here xct assert nil error. Sorry, so this will basically tell that the error should be nil. If it is not nil, then it will fail and we will get the error. So like for example, if I run this is basically this function I'm running. Test it succeeded. Okay, but suppose if I make any changes in the URL and I will run this again, okay, there is some problem with the Xcode. Let me just close this and run the test again. This time it should fail because our URL is not correct, and it should come here, or it should give error. Okay, so this is succeeding because it is giving me some response actually. So what I will do is I will just uncomment this, and we can give some different name here, so that time it will give me some different response. Basically it is giving me response here, that's why it is passed, but it's okay, we can focus on the next part, which is now I want to check the response whether it is 200 or not. So for that I will say let response equals to xct unwrap, and inside this I can pass my response, and I have to cast it as http URL response. And now I can add assert statement on this. So I will say xct assert equal, and here I want to check two things, that is 200 code is not written or not. So I will say response. Okay, so I will say here new response so that you will not get confused. I will say new response dot status code should be equal to 200. So if this is work, then we are good, that okay, we have got the response as 200. Okay, so here it is saying that you cannot use it directly, you have to try right here the try part, but again we need to write the do try catch also for that. So let's write this here and let's move this code up inside this. Okay, and after this I will write catch. Okay, now what we want to do is let's try to build it, if it is building or not. Okay, build is succeeded, and now we can run and we can check whether we are getting the response 200 or not. So let's run this test case. Okay, some problem with the Xcode again, the simulator. Run again. You can see here it is running and it has succeeded. So now you can see it has succeeded. Now we can make it, so now our code is 200, so we are good. But if I say here give something else, anything, and now if I run that test case again, so this time it should basically give us fail here. You can see, let's check. So basically it should give some different response, so you can check that whether it is giving 200 or not. So like this you can check your URLs from your project. Okay, so here it is saying that failed because it is respond is 404 not 200. So in the next function we will check how to check the 404 code also, but now we come to know that okay, there is some problem in our URL. So this way you can solve the problems very easily. So let's Control Z to users here. Okay, now after this what I want to do is I want to pass the data. So as you know, we have created this struct here, person. Let's try to pass that data and see if we are getting any errors while passing that data. So this also prevents your code. So suppose tomorrow some new developer joins, and if he changes the code for the parsing, or if there is some different responses coming from the server, then it will directly give you the error here. So let's check that. So I will say let data equals to try xct unwrap, and inside this I will pass my data. Okay, again let me call this as here new data. Okay, and then after this I will say xct assert, and here I want to check as, let's say it should not throw any error, I want to say. So I will use, but before writing this, let me just write this code so that you will understand properly. JSON decoder, which we use to decode the JSON. If you don't know how it is working, let me know in the comment section below. I will create a video on this. And inside this I want to check the person self from the data, and now you should write try here, but this is basically giving us response data, but it is force unwrap. But how we are going to check means I need to write this xct assert, it should not throw any error, so I will say no throw, and inside this I want to write this code. So select this and move up. Okay, let me close this space. Okay, and after this you have created, and now let me remove this spacing also. Okay, so there is some error with the data, let me check what is there. Okay, it is saying to force unwrap, it's okay. Now we have got the new data here, but okay, I have to pass the new data here actually. So new data, so now we don't need to force unwrap that, and now we can run the code and we can see if it is decoding properly or not. If it is not decoding, then we'll get the error here. If it is decoding, then it's fine. So let's run now. come to test cases and let's run this method. Okay, again there is some problem with my simulator, so I will close that and run the function again. Okay, it has succeeded, means we have got the data and we have parsed it properly. So let me just change this users to anything else and let's see if it is failing or not. Okay, basically it will respond me, but it will not fail here. So for that I need to create my response differently, or I should get a response differently. So suppose you are getting a different response, then this function will get changed, like it will not be able to pass. So suppose tomorrow your backend developer change the response for this URL, then you won't be able to parse it here, and this test case will fail whenever you run your all the tests. So you will come to know that there is some problem in this URL. So you can just run and you can decode it and check it. So this is how you can test this URL. So this is the main thing you needed for checking the URL success or fail, and whether it is decoding the data properly, means parsing the data properly in your model classes or not. So this is for this function. And now the last thing which we are going to create or check is, we are going to see how it works for the suppose we want to check if it is giving me the status code as 404. So for that what I will do, I will just change the URL to, let's say, something else, so that it will give me 404. So now what I'm going to do is, okay, let me just control Z this, and what I will do is I will just copy this to new function so that you will not get confused. So let's copy this, paste at bottom, test. Here I will say success 404. Okay, now this test, what I am going to write, should success whenever we get the 404. So this is how I am going to write this test case. You can write it some different way, like it should not give me 404. So the first thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to write anything here so that it will succeed, but it will give me 404. So the first thing is to change the URL. Then I have to make changes inside this do catch block also. So changes like, here I am getting the response, but here I should get 404, then only it will say true, and this will pass this test case. Then after this I want to check here, basically it should throw error, so I will say throws error, and inside this I have just decoded this is fine, but after this it is going to throw error, means it will give me one completion here. Inside this it is going to give me error, so I will say here error in, and now I can check that error here. So just to check that, I can use something like this, guard with case. Case is like, here you can say decoding error, and this decoding error should be of type mismatch. Let's remove this part, we don't need this. Okay, this equal to, if it is equal to our error, then it's fine, otherwise we have to say xct test fail, and inside this you can give whatever message if you want to give. So I will just going to print the error which I have got. So I will say error, and then we need to return it. Okay, so by writing this much of code, you can just test whether it is 404 giving or not. So let's run the final test for this video. I will run here, and it will succeed if we got that 404. Okay, so text is succeeded, means we have got 404. But suppose if I say here users, it will give me 200. So that time it should not succeed. So let's try that. Okay, there is some problem. Run it again. This time it should fail. So you can see that we have got 200 here, not 400. So this is how it works. So let's Control Z and it will work now for 404. So that's all guys for today's video. I hope you have learned many things from these two videos where I have explained you everything. So now you should be confident about writing test cases for your iOS applications, and you are actually to the next level now where you can write test cases for anything, like for synchronous code, for asynchronous code. You know how to do the code coverage, you know how to check the API response is giving or not, whether it is giving 200 or 404. Then you have also learned what is TDD, that is first you have to write the test cases which are going to fail, then you have to write the success, then you have to refactor it. So this is, then you have also learned about different assert statements like exit, assert failed, true, then equal, not equal. So there are many you can check on the this Apple documentation. Then what is unit testing, why we use it, everything we have learned in these two series video. So if you have liked this two videos, make sure you hit the like button and please give your feedback in the comment section below. And if you have any suggestions, like if you want me to create videos on UI testing, let me know in the comment section. And yeah, make sure you check out my YouTube channel where I have more than around 90 videos on different topics like Xcode tips, Swift UI. Then I've just recently started on Swift also. Then I have this general tab where I publish videos, like here I have given one video on GitHub, how to create your profile properly on GitHub and how to give a good profile readme file. Then this is the projects part where you can see, if I go here, projects, under the home, I have created different projects in Swift UI like weather app, bar graph, COVID application. You can check where I have created this in MVVM. So some users have also asked me for creating a video and on MVVM in Swift, so that will be my next video, so stay tuned for that. And if you have any suggestions, make sure you ask them. Also you can check my this page on Instagram where I put my daily updates regarding the next video. So also I give some tips regarding, and so I'm trying Android, I know some general tips I give, so all that I'm putting here. So you can follow me on Instagram to get those updates. So yeah, thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you are learning from this channel, and I'm very happy if you give me some feedback. So thank you guys for watching this video and have a great day. Bye.